America. Ann Coulter, one of my personal favorites, trending today after her appearance on ABC's The View. She faced a tough crowd when talking about illegal immigration and Donald Trump. In here to discuss her appearance is radio host extraordinaire Dan the Ochsner. Dan, welcome back. Wish you were here in the California sunshine with us.
Going to be 24 degrees tonight in Minnesota, Gina.
No!
24.
Oh, dear. I have to go to Minnesota like next weekend or something. I think I might die. I really don't do cold. So can you change that?
It's supposed to warm up, yeah, by the time you get here. So Thanks for bringing the California heat with you.
You're welcome. And I always try to do that for everywhere that I go. I just bring a little California sunshine and hope it works. All right, Dan, I want to watch a little of Ann Coulter's appearance with you. It was today on The View, and it wasn't pretty. Here we go.
This country in the 70s because there was a shortage of medical professionals who could do the job.
That's very unusual.
This year, not really.
No, yes it is.
There's also
yes it is.
Wait a minute, Ann. Have you been to a hospital? There are many doctors from Pakistan, India.
Fabulous. But the point is, okay, but whenever people talk about the immigrants we like your mother, they cite the immigrants that aren't the majority of immigrants coming in. So fine, okay, if they're going to be doctors,
but you know what, Ann,
but when we have a majority of immigrants are on welfare, why would any country bring
Americans are on welfare, period.
No, but why do you bring in people
anymore? They've sent their jobs overseas.
We can't do anything about we can't do anything about criminal Americans, about poor Americans. We don't need to be importing other countries' poor people.
Ooh, Dan, illegal immigration isn't a very easy topic to discuss, but do you think Ann Coulter did all right here?
I think so. She was clearly outnumbered. Interesting that she would go on The View. She seemed very comfortable. It's really fun to see a conservative who is totally secure in her positions. She makes great points. And as usual, for some reason, the liberals or people who are clearly liberal, even if they call themselves something else, for some reason cite the exception and claim that that's the rule. And unfortunately, that's been contributing to the truth being the lie being the truth. Up is down, down is up these days in the United States. I really applaud Ann actually for going on to The View and holding her own like that. But wow, talk about being ambushed and outnumbered.
Yeah, it doesn't even seem fair, does it? All right, well, she had an exchange with Raven Simone, too, and she reminded Raven of the discriminatory comments that she made a few days earlier on the show. Here we go.
I have a question. My mom taught me when I was younger, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And why do you think that it's important? Why do you think that's important to mudsling and have these words that obviously touch the hearts and souls of so many people of America being said when we're taught something different as a child? Could you explain that to me, and why do you think your success is based off of that?
Well, I'm at least talking about policy. You have a position on what people's names should be. Watermelondria. I mean, you'll insult people for their names. I'm talking about a government policy that affects all Americans and immigrants and the people living here, and it's harming our country. So you don't follow it?
She really held her own. It was a pretty tough crowd, wasn't it, Ox? What do you think about all that?
Did somebody on The View actually try to tell Ann Coulter that they were being substantive and that she wasn't? That's amazing to me that they would actually try to pretend like that. Watching that, I'm wondering, Ann Coulter's got to be scratching her head saying, you know, man, what am I doing with this hootenanny? When people like that are trying to be, what's the word, well, intelligent, or trying to be insightful, or trying to be educational, whatever it is they're trying to be, are we looking at her, this Simone gal, and thinking, well, you're really the pinnacle of virtue, and Ann Coulter clearly is the awful person here? Or are you looking at this and saying, I can't believe America is watching The View and everybody's talking about it?
Yeah, it's she definitely, they were not mental matches for her. Let's put it that way. Have you been around Ann Coulter much? And I mean, do you like her personally?
Yeah, I've been around her a fair amount. Yeah, we've spent some time in various broadcast events together. I haven't spent as much time with her probably as you and I have, had a chance to get to know each other. But she strikes me as a rather genuine person and somebody who doesn't have doesn't seem to be smarmy, But maybe that's because I'm a conservative. She might come off that way to liberals, but she seems very confident in her positions. And I found it interesting also. I think it was on that interview that she said she's become a one-issue voter now, and it's all about immigration. That fascinates me because that seems rather unconservative. But whatever the case, she's Ann Coulter. She's got a great shtick, and I like watching her and listening to her.
Well, she also said, Ox, that she thought Trump would make a great president and that he'll probably be the nominee. And so speaking of Trump, he was able to get CNBC to cave into his demands to keep their debate to a 2-hour time limit. It just goes to show that Trump is the ultimate deal maker. What do you think of that?
Fascinating. You know, my first thought with Donald Trump, I'm schizophrenic. I'm sorry. But one day I'll think, oh my gosh, we can't have him as a president. The next day, absolutely, we need that guy to be the president. And so when I watched what he did with this, my first instinct was, hey, we can't be letting the candidates dictate, you know, some of the rules here for these major networks. And then now I'm thinking, yeah, we can. We need to break all the rules because it's the rules that have got us into the problem that we have right now where Donald Trump is actually a breath of fresh air. So I'm all for it, and especially when you find out they're charging what? $225,000 for a commercial, and so really it's just a money grab anyway by the networks to try to extend these debates. But thank God it won't be longer than 2 hours. I can't take a longer than a 2-hour political debate.
Trump's son Eric said in an interview with Greta Van Susteren that there is no one better than his father anywhere. He said his father does not lose. Dan, that you think Trump's always win attitude will propel him all the way to the highest office in the land, and do you think he'll be successful at the job?
Wow. Well, a couple things. You know, one of my callers, a regular caller on my radio show, early on said, you know, Donald Trump is in this thing. He doesn't lose. So there is no exit strategy for a guy like that.
Yeah.
They've been trying to focus on an exit strategy for him and pretending like there is one. And I don't know that he knows what an exit strategy would be. But the other thing is, with all due respect to all the other candidates, who I think we have a pretty good slate of candidates, if you really want anything to change, anything real change, the only person is Donald Trump. Otherwise, we're going to have some version of status quo no matter who else gets in.
All right, Dan, thank you so much for being with us. And up next, we're going to dive into